Dr. Michael Short. I'm Associate Professor in City Planning in the Bartlett School of Planning. I'm speaking to you today as the departmental tutor, the postgraduate tutor. In other words, I'm in charge of all of the master's programs. I'll give you a little bit of background about myself and what we're going to do today. I also run the 2-year M-Plan City Planning program. I'm the school's equalities coordinator, and I also sit on UCL's LGBTQ steering group, which advises UCL on policy in relation to relevant issues. I'm very pleased to be able to speak to you. I'm not going to hopefully talk for too long, but what I wanted to do this afternoon is give you an overview of the school, of our specialisms. I'll briefly talk about the master's programs that we offer. Given that we have 11 of them, I'll give that as an overview. I'm accompanied by a colleague, Hannah, who will be keeping an eye on the chat. Please do ask questions as I go along. I'm very happy to be interrupted, but certainly after I've talked, maybe for 20, 25 minutes, we'll have time for any questions that you might want answering. So welcome. I have now been at the Bartlett for, wow, 8.5 years. I come from practice and academic background. My interests really lie around change in the built environment. I come from a conservation perspective, so thinking about how one might determine new development and change in historic settings. I'm also interested in a number of other things, density, for example, how might one increase density in our cities. And I'm also interested in the pedagogy of urban planning. So in other words, how we teach the subject. And if you take a look at my UCL profile, you can see the type of stuff I've been up to in recent times. So what I wanted to do, first of all, really is kind of think about why planning. Obviously, all of you have an interest in the subject, and an interest perhaps in some of our programs. But I think that interest is very timely. Sorry, I just have to excuse myself. I have a cold. Yeah, so the interest in planning is really timely. As you're probably aware, planning has a central role, and this isn't just in a UK context, but in a global context, in tackling climate change. How might we adapt our built environment and natural environment to tackle rising sea levels, for example, changes in temperatures, etc. How might we achieve sustainable development, sustainable cities? What in fact do we mean by sustainability? Certainly in this country, but in many others across the globe, housing provision is a central concern of planning. How do we plan for millions of new homes? Where should we put them? What kind of homes should we build, etc., etc. Certainly in this country, but this also exists in many other countries as well, in a different form, is how do we regenerate declining cities and regions? I'm myself from Newcastle in the northeast of England, part of the country which has been subjected to quite a lot of decline and degrowth in the late 20th century, but which is regenerating as a result of very clear and strong and financed good planning, I might say. So this north-south divide in this country, which is copied in other countries as well. Many countries across the world are grappling with transport issues. How might we discourage private car use? How might we encourage more sustainable forms of transport? What kind of infrastructure is built? Where should that go? Who pays for it? Something which is very, very important to our own school, which is the impact on society of social exclusion, community breakdown, the development of an underclass in some countries across the globe. Planning has a crucial role in trying to address issues related to that. In this country and also in many others, there's a reliance on the big society. In other words, kind of more charitable-based involvement in society. During austerity, a lot of our infrastructure, community infrastructure, has been in decline. And then planning reform. What kind of planning reform? Sorry. what kind of planning reform is taking place? This country, for example, at the moment, there's a lot of discussion about how planning might actively address issues, for example, around sustainability. England particularly is playing around with the notion of design coding, so improving the quality of what is built, not just what is built. So there's a huge range of issues that planning is involved with, and certainly this comes at a really exciting time. So your interest in this subject is relevant and very timely. You can see here a list of, we have 12 programs. We have 9 MScs, which you can see listed. We have 1 degree apprenticeship, which is for people who are already in practice who might like to undertake a qualification to upskill. We have 1 master's in research, which is in interdisciplinary urban design. And then the M-Plan City Planning, which I run myself, which is the only 2-year program in the school. But what you can see across that suite of 12 programs is really a reflection of the academic specialisms of the staff in the school. So we are known, and I'll talk about this later on, we are known specifically across these subjects, so particularly in housing and infrastructure planning, comparative international planning. We have an expertise in real estate, sustainable urbanism, urban design, urban regeneration. So we cover a huge range of territory with those master's programs. And again, I'm very happy to answer any questions specifically about those, or direct you to the program directors and admissions tutors for advice on any application that you might submit. And there's more detail here. If you just Google Bartlett School of Planning postgrad programs, you'll be able to find the full suite of those programs. I guess something to say as well is most of those programs share a common core where we try to convey the basics, if you like, before you specialize. So I suppose one of the reasons many students come to UCL is because we're based in London. We're located in the heart of London, in Bloomsbury, right in the centre of a global city. Many of you will be from outside London and outside the country, but there's huge opportunities in London through the School for Studying Cities, Urban Environments, Diversity and Complexity, in really what is a kind of a laboratory, if you like, of what's happening across the globe. I myself, as I've just said, have lived in London for about 8.5 years. It's a hugely exciting city. It's a laboratory in the sense of many of the ideas around planning are tried and tested, not always successfully, but tried and tested in London. So it's a hugely exciting environment within which to work and to study. So UCL, many of you will obviously have heard of University College London. It's one of the UK's great traditional universities. The last time I checked, a couple of days ago, we were ranked 9th in the world in the general rankings. But in planning, in this particular subject, we come 2nd after UCLA in the US. The last time I checked, we had about 41,000 students, with a slight majority which are postgraduate from over 150 countries. And actually, one of the other hugely exciting things for me as an academic at UCL, excuse me, is to teach such a diverse cohort of students. I mean, literally, for example, on the M-Plan, we have students from all over the world, and we have a kind of super diversity in the student body and among the staff body as well, actually, as it happens. So the university itself, it's interesting to note that this university was founded on liberal, in its traditional sense, principles back in 1826. It's nearly our 200-year anniversary. But it was the first university in England established on an entirely secular basis to admit students regardless of their religion, gender, etc. And this is hugely significant for us at UCL in the sense that it was the first time that for example, women, Catholics, Jews, Muslims were able to study at university level in the country. And I guess I'm kind of underlying that because it's a hugely important characteristic of the university that we carry through to this day. The diversity and the ability to discuss our views in an open environment is hugely important to the university. And ever since the beginning, we've had students from outside London and from overseas. So that is a really strong tradition in the school and the university, which we're very proud of. So the faculty under which the school sits is the largest interdisciplinary faculty of the built environment in the UK. And we're at the forefront of the debate shaping the future of our cities. And that's not just in this country, but globally. You will come across many of my colleagues, myself and many of my colleagues across the globe in relation to planning issues in various cities. Our teaching research is of international prominence, reflected in the latest Higher Education Funding Council assessment. And our vision is a world in which development is sustainable, affordable, social, economic, technological, cultural, and aesthetic innovation, while also enhancing diverse ecologies, cultures, and heritages. It's a hugely important part of what we do and our ethos. We're one of the oldest and most respected schools of planning in the world. We celebrated our 100-year anniversary in 2014. We're also one of the world's leading research-led planning schools. And I would really encourage you to take a look at the staff profiles on the Bartlett School of Planning web pages. I think Hannah might be able to drop that web address into the chat. If you take a look at the general pages, you get a sense of what we're doing, the different research clusters, but also as you delve into each of the profiles of the academic staff, you'll get a sense of where we work, what we work in, what we teach, and what we publish. And we've got a very broad range of expertise in planning, geography, design, sustainability, economics, sociology, real estate, and politics. I'd actually add to that list as well that we have strong expertise in pedagogy, in conservation. There's several of us work in that environment, and other areas of planning. And it's also worth saying, I guess, at this point that the staff body is very diverse in all its senses, but it's intellectually diverse. We come from a huge range of subjects, all teaching planning. Myself, I trained as a planner, so I'm if you like, a solid traditional planner, if you like, but we have architects, sociologists, etc. And again, that's a huge benefit to the school as we often co-teach classes from different intellectual perspectives. So we have I actually wrote this just before Christmas. We actually have 46 academic staff. We had 2 new members of staff starting yesterday. And we continue to influence academic and practice debates across all of those fields I've already talked about. I'll show you briefly some of the publications that we've produced in recent times, but we're very much involved at different spatial scales. From the local to the global, we involve ourselves in not just what's happening in England and London, but much further afield. Myself, I work a lot in Canada, Norway, Ireland, for example. So many of us have an international profile as well as UK. And according to the REF, which is the Research Excellence Framework, which is a kind of UK-based measure of what we do, the Bartlett's where the most world-leading built environment research is conducted. And you can see here some of the, I mean, obviously that's a little bit small for you, but you can see some of the publications that these are books that we produced in recent times. I will draw your attention to the right, which is a book co-edited by my colleague Lucy Natarajan and myself, which was published at the end of last year, which you're very welcome to Google. It's open access through UCL Press on participatory practices in planning and placemaking. Just to give you a flavour of the kinds of things we're publishing across the academic body. We host 4, at the last count, journals in the school, which you can see there. And I did a quick count. This is in rough terms. In the last 5 years, we've published 258 journal articles, 37 books, and 103 book chapters from staff within the school. Just to give you a sense of the kind of things that we do. Something that might be worth doing if you have a specific program in mind is having a look at the publication record of the program director, for example, who runs the program. You'll then get a sense of what that person publishes in the specific field that you're interested in. Thanks, Hannah, for putting those web addresses in the chat. We also, many of us are involved in more practice-based work. This is just a small selection of some of the things that have been published in recent times. And many of us not only work in academia, but actually do consultancy, work for government on various issues. So we're also kind of involved in everyday debates in our field. The other, just have some water, sorry. The other thing that's really interesting is that, and this is something that I really enjoy as somebody who came from a different institution and from practice all those years ago, but we use a wide and exciting range of teaching and assessment methods. And I guess one of the principles that myself as the postgrad tutor tries to ensure in all of the programs that I listed earlier is that you would be exposed to as many different ways of teaching and learning as possible, including lectures, seminars, workshops, tutorials. Add to that studios. I run a studio for my M-Plan students, for example. We have, all of the programs have site visits and field trips. That field trip normally goes in the middle of term 2, right in the depths of winter, and that's usually to European city, although I actually usually take my students to Glasgow in Scotland, which is a hugely exciting, regenerating city. We have the kind of traditional essays, written coursework and exams that you would be familiar with, but we also have many projects which involve lots of different methods, posters, reports, sketches, studios, which I talked about, where we work on a so-called wicked problem in class every week. So you develop a portfolio throughout that class, and obviously group and individual projects based on real life sites, areas, and scenarios. And I think something that's really important to convey is that group and individual work is kind of central to what we do. Not all every program has a slightly different mix of those two different things, but the group work is something that is required of us by the professional organizations. As you might imagine, as planners in the real world, we all work in multidisciplinary teams to deliver projects. The other thing that's really good about UCL from my own perspective is the level of care and support that you as a student at UCL will receive, covering those whole range of services at UCL level, so health, mental health, rights, equality, religion, finances, accommodation, and careers. Like that, the university has spent a lot of time, energy, and resource in developing those, and they're really, truly excellent. More specifically, in the School of Planning, I run the induction week for you all, excuse me, where we deliver introductions to the subjects. You have a program-specific induction. We go on a really nice boat trip down the Thames, just so you can kind of see in real life some of the issues that you'll be encountering in your time with us. We have a very robust personal tutoring system where each one of you, when you join us, will be allocated a member of staff in the school as a personal tutor who you will meet throughout your time with us. For those of you who are non-native English speakers and might need it, we have a written English support course at the school and the UCL level, which will help you probably more in relation to academic writing in English rather than the language itself. And we also have a planning research module, which introduces concepts of research and methodologies and methods. So a huge amount of support available to you while you're with us. There's also a huge number of extracurricular activities, not all of which you will have time to go to, sadly. I don't, unfortunately. But we have lots of research seminars and talks by leading academics, practitioners, and policymakers. We have a monthly public lecture series. The next one is at the end of the month. Professor Rachel Franklin will be talking to us about social exclusion in Newcastle upon Tyne, my home city. If you just have a look at the Bartlett School of Planning website, the link to which Hannah has shared in the chat, there are details of that public lecture later this month. And if you're in London, please do sign up and come along. They're a great series of events. There's a wine and soft drink reception, and a lecture from a very prominent academic or practitioner. Really, really worthwhile. We also have a London planning seminar series, which is termly, a China planning seminar series. Many of you will be aware that we have an expertise in China planning through several of our colleagues. Really interesting series of seminars and lectures. We have an annual lecture, which is named after Sir Peter Hall, who is potentially one of the most famous planning academics to have lived, who sadly passed away about 10 years ago. We have an annual lecture, which is attended by the great and good in planning, and all students are welcome. Usually takes place at the end of May each year. And then we have a series of mega infrastructure and transport seminars run by my transport colleagues through the Omega Centre. We also have the Bartlett Urban Planning Society, so-called BUPS, which is led by students in the school, both undergrad and postgrad, who put together all kinds of events from picnics to films to day trips, etc. You're invited to the Urban Lab film screenings, where they show films related to our discipline, cities in our discipline. There's lots of volunteering opportunities, and actually this is something that many of the students really take very seriously. You may or may not have heard of an organisation called Just Space, which is a London-based organisation. If you Google it, it'll come up straight away. Just Space, in essence, is a London-wide organisation that seeks to support communities across London in engaging with the planning system. The idea being that the volunteers can help amplify often unheard or ignored voices in London. UCL itself has a volunteering unit which kind of coordinates a lot of the volunteering opportunities, and also the UCL Union has a huge range of activities, student societies, events, etc. So I thought I would end up talking too long. 5 more minutes. There's a huge amount of career support, both at UCL level and in the school. UCL Career Service has training sessions on CV writing, stuff about internships, vacation work, the skills that employers seek, etc. You can set up mock interviews, they can check CVs, etc. We have networking events with guest speakers from planning practice, employers and alumni. I'm just in the process actually of setting one of these up through the M-Plan with an organisation called BAME in Property, led by a friend and colleague, Priya Shah, where students and people from practice will mingle over drinks to talk about opportunities. We often have regular sessions with the Royal Town Planning Institute and the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. And then there's lots of training through the graduate school on everything from research methods to how you might conduct interviews, for example. What's really interesting about the career service is many, even those of you who don't come from the country, will end up staying in London. There's a huge amount of opportunity in planning. The last figure I can find is 98.5% of graduates in 2022 were in employment or further study within 6 months of leaving us. It's hugely impressive. And actually, just more anecdotally from my own M-Plan, pretty much everybody stays in London for at least a couple of years after graduation to work in the field. So just a little bit of a technical slide. So there are 2 routes, Royal Town Planning Institute routes. So the RTPI is the national institution that accredits planning programs, meaning that you can work in practice and can develop your career. If you don't hold an RTPI accredited bachelor's degree from UCL or any other accredited planning school, then those programs on the right are the ones that you should apply for. And then those where you do hold an RTPI accredited bachelor's degree, the ones below are the ones that you should apply for. If there's any particular questions about particular programs in relation to that, please do email me and I can help you. The Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors also accredits those programs that you can see listed there. This is a really, really interesting dual accreditation, which is highly sought after and relatively rare in this country. And then the Infrastructure Planning, Appraisal and Development Masters is also accredited by the Joint Board of Moderators for students who've completed undergraduate studies in an engineering school. So in essence, just briefly, all of the master's programs and the MRes program can be taken full-time, part-time, or modular flexible, meaning that you can take modules as you progress. That might suit those of you who are working or may have family commitments, for example. The M-Plan, which I run, is full-time study only, just for your information. The timetables vary by program. the timetables vary by program, but in essence, all of the teaching takes place within core hours 9 to 6, Monday to Friday. So, for those of you who are interested in applying, well, firstly, what I might suggest is if you've got any general questions, obviously you can ask those today. You have my email address, michael.short@ucl.ac.uk. You can email me anytime about anything. If I can't answer, I'll direct you to the program directors who can give you a more nuanced response. But you can apply as soon as possible. Applications usually take about 6 to 8 weeks to process. Sometimes it's quicker, sometimes it takes a little bit longer. My big recommendation to you is that you apply as soon as possible. Applications and places are very competitive, so the earlier you get your application in, the better. You can see details of fees in relation to those programs on that link that's listed there. Please do send very specific. Actually, what I'd say to you is just send any queries to me, and I'll redirect them as necessary. And then any questions about the actual procedure of application can be sent to the graduate clerk, the details of which are there. Yes, thank you whoever put my email in the chat. I appreciate it. So sum up, one last slide. Planning is a rewarding professional career. I study planning at undergrad and postgrad level. It's a hugely interesting subject. It's forever shifting. London is a stimulating city to study and live in. It's a global city, lots of exciting things going on. UCL itself is one of the world's leading universities, with the Bartlett School of Planning being one of the top 3 schools of planning in the world. The programs themselves are multidisciplinary, comprehensive, with an exciting range of teaching and learning methods, solid skills development. So in summary, UCL and BSP offer a leading edge academic community with top thinkers, writers, teachers, and researchers. And just to top that off, I would also say the top students as well. One of the hugely rewarding things about being an academic at UCL is dealing with the quality and breadth of students that we attract. Thank you. Any questions? If you're too shy to put your mic on or put your hand up, then please do drop the question into the chat. Okay, I've just seen if I can just answer the question, I'm just quickly going to go through yeah, my email address. Thank you, Rochelle, for putting that in the chat. Okay, Hannah Matheson, the question, if those of you can't see it, I'm wondering how many people are approximately accepted on average per master's program. I mean, there are 12 programs, so that might be quite a complex response. I just checked admissions, we have about 600 applications at the moment for 12 programs. I can only speak in detail really about the end plan, where probably maybe about 30% of applicants get offered a place, of which probably about 75% of them accept and about 50% turn up. I suppose that, I mean, if you want to email me with a more specific question about a specific program, I'm really happy to respond, Hannah. I suppose the bottom line is it's really competitive. So my personal and UCL's view is that you should apply as soon as possible. If I can just add one more thing before I answer the other questions. For me, when we as admissions tutors get to see applications, we already know they meet the minimum requirements. So the things that differentiate students really are the personal statements. So I would consider really strongly what you put in that personal statement. And actually, this might sound quite strange to you, but a lot of the people who apply, certainly to my own program, write statements which aren't personal, which sounds very odd. So, are quite kind of neutral. So think about how you might convey your interest in the specific program. Why now? Why that program? You don't have to have a cognate background, but you have to be able to convey why you're interested in that particular program. Hopefully that makes sense, Hannah. So I've just seen if for those who've got their hands up, I'm just going to quickly go down the chat first, if that's okay, and then I'll come to you. Okay, a question from Lucas Holter. Thank you for the question. Could you speak to which programs might be the most design-focused or studio-like? Yes, that's easy. So the MSc Urban Design and City Planning, which I used to run a few years ago, is our kind of textbook urban design masters. It's really good, run by my colleague, Dr. Pablo Sendra. There are two others. That's the kind of urban design masters, our core one. For those of you interested in a more research approach, the MRes urban design can also be design focused. You basically put together your own suite of modules around one core module. And then the third is my own M-Plan City Planning, which is a 2-year program where you have the ability to shape your time. It's a studio-based program where you can take electives in urban design. So they're the main three, I would say. Hopefully that answers you. Lucy, me, thanks. There isn't an interview stage. We don't have that in the School of Planning. Katie Thompson, thank you. I'll just read out what you ask. I'm currently in work and not yet sure about whether I prefer full-time or part-time. Is it possible to decide later, apply for both part-time and full-time? What I'd say to you is apply for which you think you might want, and then you can always change it once you've arrived. That's quite easy to do. And actually, as the tutor who oversees all of this, I often have to I often am pleased to approve switches from full-time to part-time or part-time to modular flexible. Safa Assad, thank you for your message about, would you suggest this is the best route to take? I'm not sure what you mean in relation to which particular course, if you can just add that on. And then Gabrielle Pim, what's your top tip for master's applications and planning? A good personal statement. That's the way to get onto the course. And as just to repeat, I read lots of applications to my own program, which don't mention planning and don't mention the person or what they're interested in. So they're not personal. And I just reject them, to be honest. Grace, thank you for your question about RTPI accredited undergrad. You should be able to check it on the RTPI website. If you've got any problems finding the relevant website, just let me know and I can direct you. Okay, Karan, how relevant are the programs to working in an international setting? Okay, there are some programs which are more UK focused and some. So we have an international planning masters, the urban design and city planning masters, and my own M-Plan are very international. We work across the globe in those programs. For example, in the M-Plan, you can take a work placement, and usually I place people in international organizations so that they can then, when they return to their home country or go somewhere else, they can still work in that organization. Tia, thanks for your message. Tia, I wonder if you could email me about that, just because that's a very specific question, depending on which undergrad program you did. If you can just email me, I'll be able to give you a proper full answer, if that's okay. Wow, there's lots of questions. How does the employment? Sorry, Arushi, I'm just reading your message. How does the employment prospects for an international student? Do students apply on their own? I'm sorry, I'm not really sure what you mean. Do students apply on their own for what? Yeah, I think the university. I think what I understand by your question, Arushi, is in the current arrangements, master students who are on a visa get to work for, I think it's 2 years after the end of their program. The university doesn't sponsor or arrange employment for students. Okay, Anis Louis, thank you for your message. The question here is about for both the urban design masters and sustainable urbanism, you can take a dissertation or a major research project. So, in very brief terms, and I welcome you to email me, and I can give you a fuller response. All students have to undertake a dissertation while with their time on the master's programs. The MRes, the Urban Design Masters on Sustainable Urbanism, have an option for a project. This is a site-specific piece of work on a topic where you work with an external supervisor. So you can basically do a piece of research or a kind of piece of live work. In essence, that's the difference. Rachel Crawley, thanks. What's the ratio for coursework and exam? It depends on the program. Most programs have one exam maximum. I think the real estate masters has a couple, but there's no more than that. It's mostly coursework. JC, I'm looking forward to applying for a PhD in marine engineering. You are in the wrong session. Sorry, unless you want to do a planning PhD and then contact me. Namasoma Obi, I've seen your question about the Bartlett Promise. Thank you, Hannah, for responding. Namasoma, if there's anything else you want to ask about that in relation to the school, please do get in touch with me. We'd be very happy to talk to you. Pfizer, how likely are the international students to get a scholarship? We do have scholarships. The details will be on our website. Some are for domestic students and some are for everybody. So it depends what you're applying for. Oh, thank you, Hannah. You've just responded to that. Frags, thanks for your message. When I remember to send in the master's application, I'd do it as soon as possible. The deadline's really, really tight this year. Safa, I'm just trying to remember what the original question was. Hang on, just let me go back 1 second. Yeah, Safa, the IREP program's really, really good. It's one of the only real estate masters in the country. It very much is a real estate program with planning. In other words, there's lots of planning in it, but it's very famous and very successful program. So Jonas Nisa, the question is, without an RTPI accredited undergrad, would you say a fully accredited PG postgrad is crucial for career options? Yes, you can only progress to a certain level without the accreditation. And that's the same for most English-speaking countries. McEwen, there are many programs in the school. Is there a specific program you may find having the most secure career path? I'm not sure I can answer that question. Then we've got really, really good careers conversion for all of the programs. John Gregg, it's the RTPI is the answer. Safa, yeah, you're very welcome to call me. I mean, I think if you have detailed questions about the real estate program, I'd speak to William Walton, who's the program director, but I can put you in touch with him if you email me. I haven't forgotten. Oh my God, there's like 25 messages. I may now answer 2 of the people with their hands up, if that's okay, and then come back to the ones in the chat. Joe, can I help you?
Hi, Michael. Yeah, thanks for talking us through that. That was really helpful. Sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
You can. All right, fantastic. Yeah, thank you for talking us through that. That was really, really helpful. I'm interested in the urban regeneration masters, and I was trying to navigate the list of available modules that you have on your website, and I found it quite confusing in terms of trying to determine which modules were available under which particular master's programs. I was wondering if there was any sort of easier way of navigating it other than going through the alphabetical list and trying to work out which modules were available.
Yeah, do you want to send me a quick email and I'll respond and help you with that?
That'd be super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. And also Sonia Ferreira, the program director, is really helpful. So I'd maybe arrange to have a call with her. She'd be very much amenable to speaking to you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Great. Good luck. Alexis.
Hi, thank you so much for hosting this. It's been really helpful. I am curious if you can walk through a bit. This is in line with a couple of the other questions, but if you can just walk through some of the main factors that distinguish the 2-year M plan versus some of the other city planning masters. Is it mainly the studio and the length of the program, or
Yeah,
just
I mean,
a little bit of how to decide between them?
Sure, good question. I will try to keep it brief. I'm very happy to speak to you outside the meeting because actually the real answer is very long.
Okay.
In essence, I'll try and keep it quick. In essence, in the early 2000s, there was a huge recruitment drop in planning students, partly because, well, it doesn't really matter why. But anyway, so the RTPI worked with all the universities to create a new year-long intensive masters. So all of those programs that you see, apart from MPlan, are a result of, well, they came into being after that. But the year-long intensive masters basically comes from that particular activity in the early noughties. When I came to the Bartlett, myself and Professor Ben Clifford have always felt very strongly that there is space for a 2-year masters, particularly for those students who potentially want to go and work in research or do a PhD or want to spend some more time in their studies. So we came up with it. It's been running for about 6 years now. It's really successful. It's a small program between 15 and 20 students. There are a number of distinguishing features. One is the studio spine that runs through the 2 years. The second is the ability to study abroad or undertake a work placement. Third is the ability to take a broader range of electives. And the final thing is the length of the research dissertation. So it's 15,000 words instead of 10,000 and lasts a year. So there's a really big research component to it. So there's kind of 4 main differences.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And so then each of the masters are pulled from that larger program to do it in a way that's faster and a little more focused.
Exactly. And if there's any, I'm the program director for that. So if you want to have a longer discussion about that, please just get in touch.
Okay, great. Really appreciate it.
Of course. There was another hand up that's disappeared. Okay, we've got 23 messages. So what's the support, Hassan Hanan, thank you. What's the support like for finding employment following the masters? The career survey at UCL are brilliant. And as a graduate, I think you're allowed to use them for an additional, it might be 18 months or 2 years. I can't quite recall. So that, you can use those people throughout. Many of the staff have got really strong connections to employment outside the country and in the country. Rachel, is it possible to get in touch with current students or recent graduates? Absolutely, yes. I was just telling Hannah that I have a bank of students in my own program that I can put you in touch with. Or if there's a specific program you're interested in, just drop me a line and I can speak with the program director, who hopefully will be able to. Oh, Hannah's answered. Yeah, but I can put you in touch with specific people if that's useful. Okay. Rochelle Patel, hello. Maura, if we haven't been at university for a while and may be unable to contact two tutors for an academic reference, what alternatives would there be? Good question. I would always have one academic reference minimum, but I think having a professional one's also fine. If you get them to comment on your on the kind of type and quality of work that you've worked on, that's absolutely fine. And just to say, because this is a repeated issue, all references should be uploaded through institutional email addresses, not personal. And we can't consider applications when those are used. I'm just scanning down. Susanna, thanks for your email message. If I was applying this year but had to postpone until next year, is this possible? Oh, Hannah, no, it's no longer possible. We only, after the pandemic, we only allow deferrals under a very limited set of circumstances, which are quite severe ones, if that makes sense. Mesoma, yep, that's okay. Sorry, I'm just going down. Hannah, thank you again. I'm also looking into the Urban Studies Masters at UCL. I'm afraid I can't necessarily speak to the Urban Study Masters. I don't know that much about it, but it is in a school of geography. And let me think, the intellectual underpinnings are probably very different. I mean, I've no doubt it's very good. I know some of the people who teach on it, but I'm not sure I could necessarily comment on the content. I don't know it well enough. Sorry. Okay, but you're particularly interested in participatory planning. So that there is, if you have a look, so basically any of the programs which allow you to take an elective, so in other words, 2 modules from the suite of things that we offer, there are a number of modules that deal with participatory planning from different perspectives. Again, if you want to email me, I can direct you towards what those modules are. But if you look at, for example, the 3 or 4 colleagues teach modules at master's level that you can take in relation to that. Dr. Yasmina Bibijon, Professor Yvonne Ryden, Dr. Eleanor Basusi, and Dr. Daniel Fitzpatrick all run in various ways participatory modules. But please get in touch and I can put you in touch with them if that's useful. Okay, Lucas, thank you. The detail of program directors are on the, if you go into the web pages which you showed you, sorry, Hannah's answered already. Thank you. Erin, okay, on the M-Plan City Planning Masters, how much mathematics stats is required? I mean, you need to be able to count, but that's as far as it goes. I'm numerically illiterate, so that's not a requirement. Mick Ewan, I mean, our graduate employment is extremely good, irrespective of national origins of the students. Okay, Hassan, I'm interested in applying for the MSc Urban Design. Yeah, Hannah sent you about this, but it's Dr. Pablo Sendra, who's lovely. I'm sure he'll be amenable to talk to you. John Greg, yes, you can, is the simple answer. Rachel, how intense is the workload? Wow. Well, the one-year master's programs are by definition intensive, but I would say all of them are intensive. I mean, it's, they're master's programs at a world-leading institution. I guess the level of intensity depends on your own background. Some of our students come from a cognate discipline. Like I did an undergraduate planning degree, then did a planning master's, specializing in historic environments. So I had a certain amount of knowledge that was really useful. It kind of just depends, really. But I mean, I would expect it to be intensive. That's kind of the point. Right. Oh, I got to the end of those. I hope I didn't miss any of the questions in the chat. I think I managed to. If I missed any, please do drop them back in. I mean, I think as a kind of general piece of advice to you all, if you're considering applying, I would secure your place as soon as possible. Applications are very high, and if you're interested in coming in September, then please get your application in quickly. I mean, certainly, I just to reiterate, very much encourage you to spend your time and energy on your personal statement. That's, for me, certainly on my own program, which I'm the admissions tutor for, that's what differentiates you from the other applicants. So, have something that's very personal, specific. And again, you don't have to know anything about planning, but you have to be able to convey why you're interested in it, why this program, and why now, if that makes any sense to you. Oh, that's a wow. Samiha Hassan, thank you for your question. Wow, so the question, how would you describe the key differences between planning and architecture in terms of how they interact with the built environment? I mean, I'd probably need about 5 hours to answer that. But I mean, it's an interesting question. I mean, this is my own take as a non-architect, which is that I think one of the things I always find really challenging in architecture and working with architects is, well, there's 2 things. One is the kind of obsession with the site, and the second is the lack of obsession with the context of that site. So I definitely would think planning is much more about a different spatial scale than the site. So, what's happening on the street, what's happening in the neighborhood, in the city, in the wider region, and kind of planning knits those things together, or rather should knit those things together. So the interaction between the two disciplines, I think, is an interesting one and works in different ways in different places at different times. Really good question. Nick? So Nick, thank you for your question. How spatial is the teaching? Very spatial. But I mean, I think it's really interesting when we think about theory, because we tend to think of it as separate from practice. Whereas I see the two intimately bound together. I mean, all of the courses have a theoretical underpinning and a practical application, I suppose you might say. Collaboration with the School of Architecture is challenging. Yeah, I mean, we do work together, and there are certainly, you can take modules with CASA, which is the Centre for Advanced Spatial Analysis, which kind of comes under their wing. So there is quite a lot of collaboration, and certainly many of us personally work with the architecture school on various projects. Yeah, Hannah's just really thoughtfully shared with you a link to the in-person open evening on the 7th of February. Obviously, for those of you who are in the UK or might be able to be in the UK, I will be leading that session on the 7th of February. You'd obviously all be completely welcome, and I'd be very happy to chat to any of you about anything. And could I just also, we've only got a minute or two, just reiterate, if there's anything you want clarification of or want to discuss, please get in touch via my email. I'll just put it back in here in case you missed it. If I can't answer it, I'll direct it to one of the program directors. But I don't mean that just now, but in general terms, as you develop for those of you interested, develop your applications. Hannah's just sent you a link, the recording of this session, just in case you want to go over it. But yeah, just to reiterate my thanks to you for coming. It's a shame we couldn't do this in person, but I guess it means we can reach a much greater number of people. I suppose the bottom line really is, as somebody who came from elsewhere, is that Bartlett's a hugely exciting place to work and study. So I'd very much welcome you to apply and to join us in September. Oh, I've just got one more question. And I think the last question, Hannah, if that's all right. Tia, thanks for your message about environmental planning. It depends what you define as environmental planning. I mean, environmental planning kind of is a theme through a lot of the modules and programs. Potentially the Sustainable Urbanism Masters might be the one most suited to you. I teach on that Masters, and it has an environmental sustainability kind of underpinning. Why don't you have a look at that one on the program diet? Hopefully that helps. Okay. I think I have survived, even though I have a cold. You're very welcome, Hannah. Thank you very much for all of your questions. I'm really happy and pleased that so many of you are interested. Again, do get in touch if you want me to help you with anything. But if not, maybe I'll see some of you in September. Thank you.